Okay, so we are now live on Facebook. Good morning, everybody. I am Stephanie, founder of Love Lotus Evolution. If you haven't heard of me, my sole mission is to help people heal blocks, traumas, and find their gifts and purpose through different techniques and holistic healing. Today, I'm super excited to announce I have Oliver here from the UK. He has a wonderful list of many different things he's been doing. Good morning, everybody. Hold on 1 second. I am Stephanie, founder of Sorry about that. It was Facebook was interfering in the other tab, so I had to take that off. But I'm super excited to have Oliver here with us today to share his inspiring story. Before we get into that a little bit, I know a lot of people in my community have seen the updates lately. There is going to be a healing expo in Battle Creek next weekend, and I'm super excited. I will be there with my whole line of all natural beauty products, and I will also be offering mini card readings and energy healing, along with I will be finally speaking. So I'll be holding 2 classes next weekend at the Healing Expo. So make sure you check that out. If you have any questions, allow yourself to message me or Sadie Galvin about it. I did just kind of want to put that out there for a lot of you who haven't heard of the event yet. So going more into detail, today we have Oliver, and we'll be talking more about his inspiring story and where he's at now, where he came from, just to give us a little bit more of inspiration and get to know him a little bit. So I'm going to pass it on over to Oliver here, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are and what do you do.
My name's David Oliver.
No, yeah, I like to call you Oliver.
And I am currently in a state where I'm qualified to teach and practice Reiki, which is an energy healing technique which can be done either face-to-face or over distance. I'm also qualified to practice neuro-linguistic programming, which is a psychological therapy to help people change the way that they perceive situations that cause them trauma and help them to move on from that without it overcoming them and overwhelming them in a way where they can't deal with those situations and they can feel happier in their everyday. I'm also becoming an established poet. I've been writing poetry just for over a year now. I've been writing and posting every day to begin with as a way for me to feel like I'd achieved something in the time when we've been restricted by the lockdown. I thought even if I haven't really done much, at least I've done something worthwhile and then sent out there to try and hope that anyone that sees it has a bit of a better day because they've had that message of inspiration. And now that's got to the point where I've published my first book on Amazon a few weeks ago. And one beautiful thing I had is a lady that had a copy sent to her in America has actually used it as her daily inspiration. She'd look at the book, at a random poem, find one, and take the message from that to make her day better. So that's a really beautiful feeling to know that people are taking it in that way and it's helping them have a good time. And yeah, generally, I've just been working on bettering myself, spending a lot of time meditating and advancing in situations with that. Like I said, writing my poetry and trying to really make the time that I've had useful in finding what I really care about myself. Because, as everyone does, you go and do your daily things and you go to work and you may love your job and you may be your dream career, or you may just do it because you have to. But I feel a lot of people have let what they really need to focus on go to the wayside because they put importance on what they have to do. And I feel that because I was put in a situation where I didn't have to do that, I could use that time to really explore myself, what I cared about, what I really wanted to do with my future, what was making me happy, what was making me unhappy, and how I could change those things for the better. And just generally adapt to what I desire and what I like doing and how that fits in with the world around me and which bits I can use as ways to advance in my life, which bits I needed to get rid of because they weren't serving me well, and just have as much of a positive impact on myself and hopefully on other people. But I'm also been learning to care for myself more, which was something that is strange as a caring, supportive person. You always put other people first because you want everyone to be happy, but sometimes you have to look at yourself and make sure that basically the best way to put it is not pouring from an empty cup. Because if you're not looking after yourself, or if you're not in a position where you're at your best as much as you can be, no matter how much you want to help other people, it's not going to be as good as it could be because you simply aren't in that place. And if you do try and do it not being in that place, then you're going to end up exhausting yourself and causing yourself a disservice or making yourself worse than you were from the start point because you've given too much and you haven't looked after yourself enough. And I've also been finding how to do that without feeling like I'm being selfish. So a lot of people are like, oh, why should I look after myself and give myself time? It's selfish. It's like, well, it's selfish as in you're giving to yourself, but as long as you're not doing that just for yourself all the time, then there's no harm in that. And yeah, like I said, I've just been working through how I feel about things, how I think about things, and figuring out what makes sense to me. And then therefore how I can use my experience and skills to really help others when I want to. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that's something, I think it comes with age and experience. You kind of realize that when you're not a spring chicken anymore. I mean, I know I'm not that old, but I'm starting to feel as I didn't know because I hadn't got there till now, but as an adult should, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that does make sense because we really can't give from an empty cup either. And I feel like I had read a quote last week, and it said that, you know, the meaning of life is to find our gift and our purpose is to share it.
Yeah, and I saw that.
That really rung true. It's like, that's what we do, is we take this time to find out who we really are and what fills our cup, you know, what's going to make us full. And then we learn to resonate and share that with others so they can do the same. But we don't lose ourselves again. You know, we refine ourselves to then be able to share it. And we learn those boundaries of being able to keep our cup full on that level.
Yeah, but it's also finding the ways that you can support yourself and live and, you know, pay whatever needs to be paid because you have to have money to do that. But also do what you should be doing if you have the opportunity to do that. So like I said, a lot of people go and do a job they have to do because that's what's demanded of them, but it might not be what fulfills them. But sometimes you don't have a choice because you have to make that money and you have to pay your bills. And the point of view with, especially with spiritual work, is some people are very much, it's a gift and you should just give it away because it's not for you to profit from. But at the same time, a lot of therapists, in, you know, doctors, nurses, they still provide a caring service, but they'll happily charge for it. You still have to pay for healthcare. You still have to pay for medication. It's not given away for free because it's a nice thing to do, you know. So exactly. With holistic therapies and things like that.
That's like hobbies where people do that, where they make their products, regardless if they make it out of free material, it's still the time and the dedication and the love that we put into our products or our, you know, our services, just like you're saying with the doctors.
And becoming qualified and trained in those subjects as well. You have to pay for that. So, you know, it's fair enough that you make that money back. But I think a lot of people have a problem with it simply because some people see making money as, you know, money's the root of all evil. And I understand kind of that point of view because a lot of corrupt things happen to profit off other people's suffering. But not everybody's doing that. You know, people are just doing that because you have to work within the system that we're in. But it would be great. I'd love to be able to just go and give my healing away for free all the time if I could, and if I could still support myself. Mm-hmm. But I'm in a situation where I'm in a relationship, so I have to adhere to working with my partner, and I can't just go buy a tent and just go and live anywhere and be a nomad and live on the basics, because that's just not how my life is structured. I have a house, I have bills to pay, I need to be able to feed myself. I am not self-sufficient, so I have to find a way to maintain that. And if charging for my services is the way it goes, then that's the way it goes. But I was also talking to my friend earlier, and he said, what you do, some people might not know exactly the methods that you use, but they're seeing the results of the benefits of your help, and that's priceless. So, you shouldn't be afraid to ask to have something in exchange for what you're doing, because, you said, you're putting all the effort and time into it. So equally, you should get something back.
And that's how it's supposed to work, is that balance. There's always supposed to be an even energy exchange. And money, currency, is technically an energetic symbol. So, whether it be money, trade, energy work, that's what I've noticed. A lot of us as healers, along our journey, we connect with a lot of, like-minded others that are doing the same thing. And like myself, I might trade a regression session with somebody else who does energy healing work. But it's still an equal exchange. There always has to be that balance of that energetic exchange.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting because there's a group that I'm part of that are going to be working together, offering energy distance healing to people that need it. Basically, the main focus is on people with PTSD and anxiety. And we had our first group session to get used to working with each other over Sunday and Monday. And on Sunday, there was 9 of us, 5 people working on 4 and 4 on the other 5. And the bliss that everyone felt after that, it is priceless. The ability to do that, and the ability to feel other people's healing energy. And we were happy to do it as that. None of us were going, well, no, I want to be paid for my time, because we knew the value of it. We needed to practice it to get used to that situation. But I said after that, you wouldn't get therapy like that for hundreds of pounds. That was like 6 months worth of therapy in an evening. And it was absolutely amazing to connect with people like that and to feel that abundance of energy. And it gave us an idea, if that's that group of people, all of us, 11 maybe more people working on one person, they are going to feel such a dramatic effect in their lives, and it is going to be so powerful. And we're hoping that with words going to spread, and more people are going to have it and realize that even though they may view their situation as complicated, because there's complications that created the disease that they're in, it doesn't have to be overly complicated to cure it. I mean, it's a very basic way of looking at it. If you can just show someone they can feel better, that starts that journey. Once they understand they can improve, then that begins the healing straight away, because that's what the problem is with a lot of people. They don't feel that they can control their situation. They don't feel that they can feel better, because they get used to being in that situation for so long that becomes their normal way of doing things. And the thing I find a bit frustrating and sad is you get people who've been like that for a long time, you'll get them to feel better, but they'll automatically go back to where they were, because even though it's not the good place for them to be, it's familiar to them. And that's one thing you need to understand, is when someone changes to a place where they can be happier, it's getting them to be comfortable with being there. It sounds strange that they need to do that, but because it's so unfamiliar to them, they sometimes feel even worse, because they're suddenly worrying about, oh, I feel different, or I think differently, and they don't know how to handle it because they've never been there before. So that's something that I'm aware of, is that when you are helping people, to as much as you can, you want them to understand what they may feel like and know that that's normal, and not just think, oh, I don't like this, and go back to where they were, because then they will never get out of it. And then they'll still be, oh, we want to get out of it. But even though they've experienced it, their brain still won't accept it.
And that is such a good point. Like, I can't, stress how good of a point that is, because that's usually what keeps us, in cycles. And what breaks the cycles is what you're pointing out is, we get uncomfortable, when it's a spot that we're unfamiliar with. You know, like let's say, we'll take an example of a toxic relationship and being in a toxic household. That person will stay because not that it's any good, but because it's comfortable and that's what they know. Now, if you were to take them out of that and put them in a loving, caring situation, they may feel more uncomfortable and more on edge because this is what they're not used to. That's not their typical wiring of experiences. But sometimes we have to embrace that uncomfortable feeling in order to break that cycle and to get through it.
Yeah, like you said, some people they'll tell themselves or convince themselves that the person who's beating them daily loves them, because they just won't accept that they're not deserving of something better.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that that's kind of, I was having this conversation with my family on Sunday, how the general mindset of a lot of people seems to be starting in a negative place and having to fight to get to a happier place, because there is so much in the world, so much awareness of negativity and corruption and all these things that people suffer from, that a lot of it's unnecessary. But because that's how people see the world, that's the general consensus that people have, is, oh, I have to feel like this, and that you have to be therapized to be shown a way to get to a happier place. And it's good that there's people that want to give therapies and help these people, but it's a shame that there's such a demand for them, because there shouldn't be that many people who are that miserable or depressed or anxious or whatever, that they can't help themselves without someone else's intervention, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is, as a therapist, you always say, we're not there to cure everything for you. We're just there to show you that it can be done and then guide you towards where you want to get to. But the fact that people need to trust other people to do that for them, and the fact that everybody in this world, even though we've all got our labels, we've got our paths and stuff, everyone's mostly second guessing and hoping that what they're doing is right. But what I'm hoping is that with, technology, as we said before, about me being able to talk to you thousands of miles away and create this network of understanding, that hopefully that will encourage people to know familiarity and to know that they can start off being happy and they are okay being who they are, and they're allowed to do that, and they can grow from that, rather than worrying that they're the black sheep or the odd one out, or that there's something wrong with them, or they have to go to get medical help to change the way that they think because they think it's wrong, or they're told it's wrong because of their culture, or whatever it is that suppresses them and stops them from just being happy with who they are. Because we think we've got an idea of why we are here, but we still don't really know. We've built our whole world on understanding what we know and doing what we think we should do, thinking that we should have money in the system and that we need to buy food and we need to buy a house and get educated to get the job to afford the mortgage, and then put ourselves again on the back foot under anxiety and stress of having to worry about having that money to do it. I'm getting anxious just talking about it, and that's just, should be much more simple. So there is some things that need a lot of attention, and there are some amazing things going on, but basic survival, I don't want to go on about it too much. I know it's a big controversial subject, but just looking after the environment, little companies do, oh yeah, we're going to have clean the air week or plant a tree day and stuff. And it's like, that shouldn't have to become an event. That should just be normal everyday activity. Because we're looking at all the futures of all the things we're doing in advances. But if we don't have clean water, food to eat, and clean air to breathe, nobody's going to be able to be anything, because we're going to be busy trying not to die. Sorry to be so blunt, but that's pretty much how it is. And that's why I feel with healing, it's great. Like I said, it's great there's people doing it, and it's great that people care, but there shouldn't be such a need for people to just
validation,
black and white, be valid in the way who they are, be comfortable, and be able to face each day with, maybe immediate dangers might cause you stress, but that's what I read is, fear isn't the problem. Some things are dangerous, but otherwise you haven't really got anything to worry about. we're not living in the wild. We're not having to be scared of something killing us or eating us. You know, we live in, especially in England, we haven't got any poisonous animals anymore. We haven't got any predators. We've got everything we need. And this is why I feel this is a good opportunity. Now we've got this breathing space, we should be using it to work on, right, we've got what we've got all the food we could want, we've got the understanding that we don't need to fight to take over things, even though people are, you know, it's still very prevalent, people are fighting over bits of land. But we should be celebrating the good things that we've got and making sure that everybody has a better time, rather than trying to control or take over or have something that we don't, because there's enough to go around. But because of the segregation that's created, it's like, no, these are my billions of pounds. You can't have it because it's in my bank account. It's like, well, what are you doing with it? Nothing, but I've got £1 billion. It's like, well, yeah, great, but
Yeah,
it's not helping, is it? Sorry, went a bit off topic there.
it's all right. And that's fine. That's like, you know, there's somebody out there who's listening that will need that little tidbit. So that's, you know, that's what's the wonders of the interviews, is we can, you know, go off topic a little bit and we come back. So, but it's a very good point that you're saying, because I mean, not even just like on a religious standpoint, how you had mentioned earlier, how everything externally, we take everything internal at a young age and they teach us to make it external. So that's another reason why we don't, you know, feel right, so to say, because we're taking all of our power or our control or any of that and we're putting it into an external figure or certain things. We're taking it out of us and then making it to where we need other people to do that. And I think that's what we kind of learn on our healing journey, is it's about taking that control back, taking our power back, listening to our inner selves again and getting in tune with our inner, not the external, bringing it back together. And I think that's what a lot of us kind of really learn through our healing journey, is that it's it's not about, you know, depending on other people, it's about ourselves. And when we can learn to, you know, take that power back, our own external that we put outward, and bring it back inward, is when we really are like, that's when we start going on fire. You know, like, I'm doing this work and we can help these people, and I can, you know, I'm abundant. It's not about, you know, we're sharing, we're, you know, this, that, and the other, because we become more internal again, opposed to external, like the majority of the world, because that's how we've been raised. So it's a lot about that social conditioning.
Well, yeah, that was part of the journey that I started making last year. Is I was offered the chance to access the 21-day Deepak Chopra meditation about abundance, and strangely enough, I think it worked, because you know, all the things I've done and the things I've excelled at has been an abundance of energy for myself, because yeah, I've done the internal work. Like I said, I've it's having that quiet space and that respect to give yourself that space to even hear your inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, everyone's so, you said everyone's so busy being external, doing all these things and keeping busy, that they're not even giving themselves 5 minutes of actual peace to sit down and hear what their brain's actually thinking, because they're so busy reacting to things rather than acting on things. And we're told, you know, and we're bombarded with information all the time, with advertising and signage to, you know, everything to guide us where we should go and how we can, like with the internet, you know, there's so many adverts, especially, you know, on social media like Facebook. There's so many things trying to get your attention, and it's almost like it's creating a natural ADHD within everybody, because we love learning, and there's all these things, you know, if you really wanted to learn everything that you were presented with in a minute's worth of profiles on Facebook, you'd have to spend all day paying attention to it to really get it to sink in. Mm-hmm. And it's great to have that access to information. We simply don't have the time to really focus on it. So it's making people very scatty, because oh, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? On top of all the normal stuff that we're taking in as well. Mm-hmm. And it's no surprise that people are finding it difficult to know who they are and feeling lost, because they're so busy trying to interact with this world of information that's available to us, that it's not creating a positive effect, because it's not all being done properly. it's being attempted at, and now that culture's expanded on to very materialistic kind of shallow representations of humanity through people on using TikTok to dance around and stuff. We've got nothing against having fun, but when people are, as it's been established now, kids that have grown up with the internet being their everyday life have a very different point of view and a very different attitude to how they think life should treat them to people that lived before that, because it's all very instant. They think, this habit again, if you join my masterclass, you can make 6 figures in a day or whatever. And we know that's not true, because if it was, we'd all be doing it. But some people who are a bit more younger might have not seen the other side. We go, yeah, okay, I can do that. And you know what I mean? It may lead them down false things and leave them not really being fulfilled because they're chasing something. It's about chasing the dream and being the celebrity and stuff, where, yeah, some people get lucky and get to do that, but not everybody does.
Yeah, and they're still looking externally. They're looking at all of these people that have what they want, and they're externally trying to get there instead of internally finding the answers themselves. Like Google, like you're saying, like there's Google and YouTube and all these things out there where they don't even have to think for themselves half of the time. They're like if we have a question, what do? Oh, just type it into Google. They're not having to necessarily think for themselves and explore inward to receive these answers. They're always looking externally, like that celebrity will have the answer, or that news channel will have the answer, that podcast or that article. We're going to find our answers externally instead of actually trying to find them internally.
Yeah, go to a library and read a book, and they're like, what's a book? I'm kind of being blasé, but it's getting to that point, isn't it, where someone's put the effort in, so someone else doesn't feel that they have to. And sometimes it is useful if you want to know something straight away. But as we had the situation before with the lack of internet for being able to connect. I had the same problem the day before. My internet cut out. A lot of people's did. And I just sat there and I was like, I pretty much can't do anything entertainment wise. The only thing I can use my phone for, surprisingly, is making a phone call, which you hardly ever actually do as much anymore because we're so used to the video and stuff. Or I couldn't watch any visual entertainment because it's all relying on an internet connection to provide it for me. And it's strange, you don't realize how much you use it or rely on it until it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started jokingly said to my partner, I have to read a book. Well, yeah, you do find things, but some people would completely freak out. They probably need therapy because they've been deprived of the access to their lifeline, which is being able to have all the information there.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, there's a lot of people who are realizing these things and are starting to look internally and are wanting people to help them do that. And that there has been a notable uprising in interest in spiritual things or growth in spiritual classes or spiritual services being promoted, because a lot of people are realizing that all these things that we've been talking about aren't satisfying and aren't nurturing us, and that we do need to pay attention to some basic but forgotten methods of just enjoying our lives, really.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of people that are wanting to help others and are making the efforts to do that, whether it is as a job or given their free time to do that as a volunteer. But either way, there's a lot of people that are doing it because they realize things need to change. In a weird way, it is self-preservation for humanity, but we're also really aware that the planet itself does need to be able to breathe itself. I actually had a meditation experience not too long after George Floyd died, and the earth said the same thing to me. She said, I can't breathe. And I was like, that is such a simple but tragic thing to think. Without breath, you can't live. It's that basic. And it really made me think made, really start the wheel spinning of thinking about how much we need to preserve what we've got before we advance anymore. We need to stop burning things. We just need to stop burning things end off, because it's not healthy. We need to stop throwing plastic in the oceans. My point is, it's not through lack of knowledge, it's just being ignorant. We've had enough time to see the effects of it. We know what's happening, and apart from just being lazy and not bothered to change the way we do things, there's no reason why it shouldn't be done. And it shouldn't have to get to a crisis point for us to realize that. That's the thing that I find weird about people's attitudes, is it's not until they're without it that they realize that what they've been doing. Same with, with abusive relationships, same with not having the internet. You get so used to being in a groove of things that you may say, yes, I'm open-minded, I'm caring, but in a lot of ways I am, but I still know that I have habits which really shouldn't be indulged in. But because it's convenient, the lazy part of the human being goes, oh yeah, it's fine, I'll get someone else to do the work, because it means I don't have to. I can gain benefit from it without having to really input into it. But again, it's about what you value at the end of the day. And that's what I think is another part that's important, is for people to learn what value means to them. Because, some people, if they think, it's showing how popular they are by how many people react to something that they do, that's their value, that's their life, that's fine, it's not doing any harm, but it's not really going to make you really deeply happy. It'll keep you happy for a day, but again, it's finding that fix. It's the next one, the next one, the next one. And that's, like I said, that's fine, advancing in things. It's great that we are learning about all these things we can do in the world, but they should be used for a better purpose rather than just feeding the ego.
Absolutely, I can agree with that. That's very, very true.
So yeah, that's why I'm finding it interesting with what I'm doing. Like, with I said, I've been writing my poetry and done that, wrote the book. Part of me, I do it because I want the people to read it to have a good experience. But I'd also love it if 100 people read it. I'm not going to say it doesn't make me feel good to know that a lot of people are paying attention to me, but at the same time, I didn't do it with the intention of becoming famous. If I did, for whatever reason, obviously that would be hopefully good. But it's an interesting contrast between wanting people to know you because you've done something, but I want people to know me because I've done something worthwhile. I haven't just said something outrageous or, done something to get attention and get the press. I've done it because I was asked to be fair. After a while of writing the poems and putting them out there, more than one person said, so when are you going to write the book? And I thought, oh, maybe I should. And then because of the gentleman Trevor, who I've been working with my art, he has been very patient and helped. He's designed the book cover and he's edited it and put it all in place. And I've used Amazon Kindle to publish it on, which again is a bit of a controversial thing because we know that Amazon aren't really the most ethical of companies. But I have the convenience of them pretty much printing my book for free.
And what is the name of your book again?
It's called Find Your Star.
Find Your Star by
it was Find Your Star, Enlightened Poems by David Oliver and edited by Trevor Barrett, because it was inspired by a meditation. Actually, the meditation was where you imagine that you're looking at the stars in the sky, and there's one that catches your attention, and you ask that to send you healing energy, and the energy comes down, it fills you up, and it takes away all your stresses, anxieties. You let it dissolve into the light, and then let that light drain away. And then if you want to, you can ask it to send a much more energetic light to fill that space with zingy, clean, fresh energy and leave you feeling refreshed and alert again. And it's a pretty basic concept, but it works really well. And I just like that idea with the point of the poems of, basically I see finding your star as an analogy for finding what makes you happy, which is, kind of ties in with everything that I've been thinking and feeling. And that's why I thought it was appropriate. And yeah, like I said, the people who have been reading it have been finding those moments of happiness or inspiration from it. And yeah, it's done what it's supposed to do. And I just feel, yeah, I like I said, just the fact that, that one person has said that, it's had that effect, means more than selling 1,000 books, really. If it's actually having that effect on people and they're feeling it, the positivity that deeply, then I know that that's the good thing that was supposed to happen. And if I keep making these little drops with all the things I'm doing, then it's going to carry on growing and growing and growing, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, like you said, with school and stuff, you're taught to have aspirations, you're taught to want to be successful or study something and be the top of your class or whatever, which, yeah, it's good to have things to look forward to and things to work on. But I find that satisfaction in the self that I've done that, but in a very different way. But it has really had an extreme effect, and it has been worthwhile doing. And it's also made me happy knowing that I'm doing it. So I feel fulfilled in what I'm doing. And so it feeds my desires to be happy, but it's not draining me. It's not taking from an empty cup, and it's giving to people in ways that there's no other way. I don't think that could really happen. I think it's quite unique in that way. And that's what I like about myself, is when I grew up, I did feel like the black sheep in some ways. I had different points of view on stuff. I had different ways of doing things. But now this is coming about, I understand why I am who I am. It's all making more sense to me. And now that I've established that, I'm able to be confident enough to expand on that and excel and do these things I'm doing. And that's been it's been a journey for me. And I feel this journaling and the poetry and everything else, the advancement of the book, are another level of representation of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like this a year ago. I was confident enough, but I was nowhere near as vocal. And now I find it difficult to shut up sometimes, but I'm not going to give myself a hard time about that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I have opportunities like this to tell you about these things, and I have these things to say now because I've done them and I've experienced it and I've seen the benefit of it. That's what fuels my want to do all this work. Is I've been through some horrible situations. I've suffered things and been at the hands of people that I wouldn't have expected to put me through stuff I've been through, but they did. And yeah, it hurt and it took me a long time to find how to be okay with it, but I've done it and I've learned how to help other people with it. I've still managed to keep genuinely happy. I don't have any difficulties with expressing myself confidently. I haven't got anything really negative that I have to deal with. I don't drink. I don't do anything unnatural. My main thing I have enjoyed doing is healing and meditating. The energy from it is much more powerful and much more profound than any other substance you can use to feel something different. And it really is a beautiful thing. And yeah, with all of this, even if, saying about people finding 5 minutes peace, if everybody just learned to meditate, just put themselves in that zone, you don't have to go too far out there. You don't have to go through space or multi-dimensional. Just sit there and let your brain be quiet for 10 minutes and you'll feel a whole world of difference, because you can do that. Again, it's bringing yourself to yourself and knowing what you're able to do and then enjoying doing it. Really, doing nothing sounds like the silliest thing, but it's actually really good.
Yeah, definitely. So talking a little bit about your childhood, I would like it if you could, if we can go back a little bit, just explain a little bit about like kind of like how was your childhood for you and what were some of like the struggles or challenges that you kind of faced along your journey before you really hit that awakening point of like, hey, I need to do this work.
As a child, I had a unbalanced life in the fact that my parents were divorced when I was about 3 years old. So I didn't know what it was like to have my parents together as a family. Um, excuse me. But my dad decided with my mum that it would be best for him to bring me and my brother up, who's a couple of years older than me. So that was that situation. And I didn't really go without, to be fair. My dad worked really hard to work his job and still care for us as children. My family decided that they wanted me to have a private education, basically for it to be paid for, which I wasn't too enthusiastic about. I didn't really care, but that's what they wanted for me. But basically, they all my mum, my dad, and my two grandparents all contributed to pay for my education. So, in some ways, you could say I was privileged by having that. And in a way, yeah, it is what it is. There's a lot of very much trying to upkeep a certain image and be a certain way. And I did okay. I passed my exams. I made some good friends out of it. I played rugby as a sport quite a lot, and just generally got through with it. But I didn't feel like, again, I was any better than anybody else because I had this. It was just the situation I was in. And then as I became a teenager, I went through the usual teenage, early girlfriends and breakups and all the emotional stuff that comes with that. But at the end of my teenage years, when I was 18, my mum passed away. So that was a very difficult situation because of the circumstances around her death. Basically, she was epileptic, and when she was younger, they found out why, and they operated on her, and it seemed that she was fine. She was cured of it. She didn't have any seizures, but she started having them again, and didn't really tell anybody because she didn't want to go back to where she'd been and didn't really want to face up to it. So the fact that she passed away because of a seizure and the fact that it happened again really had a double impact on me because I knew nothing about it. I didn't know it was a possibility. So it left me with a lot of questions, as you do when you lose someone. Why this? Why that? And, it wouldn't have mattered if I'd really known those answers. It wouldn't have changed the situation. It is what it is. But basically, a few months after that, I was very much in a daze for a long time. Didn't really feel connected to anything. Just felt like I was floating around in a bubble, quite disconnected from the world around me. But I found a shop that I looked in the window and they had quartz crystals and all these beautiful things. And I've never seen anything like it before. And I didn't even think about it. I just felt myself walking into the shop. And the lady there, she didn't really ask what I wanted. She just told me there's a person practicing Reiki at the shop at the time. And I think I just gave her the money and walked in, let the guy do the work, walked out of the shop and realized how different I felt from when I was gone in there. I felt real again. I felt my feet on the ground. I felt the sun on my skin. I felt all the stress and stuff in my head was just gone. And I just looked up and looked around me and I was like so shocked by how much of a difference there was. And I thought, well, I didn't know anything about it, so it can't have been me imagining it because I wouldn't know how to imagine to feel like this. Basically, it really made an impact on me. And I went back to the shop not too long after, and the lady in the shop told me that there's someone local that would teach me how to do what had happened to me if I wanted to learn it. So I took the details, and then when I was ready, I gave them a call, and on the next course available, I booked myself onto it. And the attunement process, I don't know if you've been through one or you've done them yourself, but it's very unique in the way that it's done. The person who's the master uses symbols and breath work and these different ways to enhance your energy to the point where you're sensitive to it, basically. Because it's explained to me that everybody has these abilities, but they just don't go internally and connect with it, or they don't go through the process to amplify enough for them to feel that it's there. But that first day was amazing. And then it was over a weekend. We did the initial process, spoke about our experiences, and then went home and rested. And then the next day we went back, having had a night to sleep on it, and then practiced on each other. And the most remarkable thing for me was, as I was practicing on this lady, I didn't know her and I never really spoke to her, but my hands, when I was working on her, went to directly over both of the shoulder blades. And it's happy now just talking about it. That's what I love about it. You talk about it, it's like, hi. There was so much energy coming out of my hands that I literally couldn't touch her back. The only way I can describe it is, when you have two magnets and they retract from each other, there's a bit of, like, they're soft, but there's that resistance. My hands and her back were doing that. I was literally trying to push my hand down, and if I relaxed my wrist, my hand was literally pushed back up.
Oh, wow.
And I was bouncing my hand pretty much on air. And I kept doing it because it just really made me laugh, because this is crazy. But it showed me that it was working. And the reason there was so much energy needed is because she explained to me after that she worked as a hairdresser. So her shoulders were always in that hunched up position, kind of holding her arms up. So the fact that I knew nothing about that situation, but I knew I needed to heal it, that's when it really hit home of how special this energy was. And then after that, it just made me feel like life had a lot more color to it, because I felt once I was attuned to it, I could see the source of it. And the way that I interpret the source of this energy is like, it's as big as the sun. And the only way I can describe the way I look at the colors is, do you remember the old Transformers cartoon? Mm-hmm. The Energon cubes, they were like these flashy blue and pink colors. That's how I see it, a big ball of Energon cube, basically. And the way that, you ask for it to connect with you, and then it goes, the logic is that you go through certain hand positions and opening up your chakras and things, and you invite the energy into you. And then you act as a conduit for it to go through you into the person that you're working on. So that's where the whole thing about being humble comes from, because you're not superpowered. You are connecting to amazing energy, but you're not generating it. You're you are the channel, the empty vessel. But I do feel that it does pick up on your intentions in some way, and it does have an effect of the tone of you goes into your healing energy. I don't doubt that, because I've had people work on the, that felt like this or that felt like that, and I think that's because it's picking up on my emotions, which is going to, because it's going through your energy body, isn't it? But yeah, basically being able to do that was, showed me something I never thought could exist in life. I'd heard of magic. I'd, read stories about witches and wizards and all this hocus pocus stuff, and I always found it interesting, but I didn't think it was actually possible. And then to be able to do this, and then also as I further developed to become a Reiki master and teacher, where I was able to attune people to it, that is a really amazing feeling, to be able to do the attunement yourself and to see someone being able to do that work because of your intervention. Again, it's just mind-blowing that it's something that can be done, but it's really beautiful to see. And
it never gets old. I don't know
about it. Doesn't. I'm always enthusiastic.
First experience is the same as the 100th experience, because you learn new things on the way. Because when you were talking about that experience you had, I remember that as well, when I first started with Reiki energy healing, and then I started branching into shamanic, medical, intuitive and stuff, and it never gets old. And I will never forget that first time when I felt my hands, and it wasn't, since we all kind of pick up differently, mine was a very hot, tingly feeling, almost like there was heat emitting from that body part. And when I had asked, like, well, as have you ever had an issue with this area? And they were like, yeah, I broke my elbow when I was a child. And it's like, well, how as an adult am I picking up on your broken elbow that you broke as a child? But you feel it and you're like, oh wow, and then that excitement, and then the excitement that they get from the the healing or the inspiration, it never gets old.
And the trust they place in you when they know that you are picking up on that, because there's no other way, unless they have a plaster cast on, you don't know their arm's broken, do you? There's no obvious signs, but it's there. And I think, again, these things are there and to be able to do. And people are becoming more open-minded to it, and it is becoming celebrated and used more. But I just hope that it keeps going on because, like I said, everybody has the ability to do it.
Mhm.
The best point was made to me was, you fall over and you cut yourself. The first thing you do is you put your hand over it, don't you, automatically, without even thinking about it. And that was made to me. That's because you're trying to heal yourself because you can.
Mhm.
Your first thought is to look after yourself and heal yourself and try and put your energy through it.
So speaking of
But
healing, so on your journey so far, what do you feel were your biggest challenges or struggles on your journey? Whether
um,
it be something healing on your own end or even on the physical aspect of your journey.
it was dealing emotionally with the contrast between knowing that I had these healing abilities and that in my head, I should have felt better because I had the ability to heal myself, but I still had to process and go through the various stages of mourning from dealing with what had happened. And that contrast always kind of created a bit of conflict within me because I was like, I should be happy. I know I can be happy. I can tell other people how to do it and I can make them get to a better place. So why can't I do that for myself? Again, I felt like I was pouring from an empty cup. And all I wanted really was to just feel peace in my mind with it. And as time went on and it became more established in my brain, it felt like it was more difficult to get rid of. But I know now I've managed the last month or so to start really getting mentally to that place I really want to be. And that's been through a bit of help from others, but also some self work. Um, it's been finding the key to understanding what it is the issue is and then how I can deal with it. Because I was looking at this way, I was looking at it that way. I was like, I'd do Reiki on myself or have a session from someone else and I'd feel it had changed. And then about a few, like maybe a week, 2 weeks later, I feel my mind slipping back to that place. And I feel annoyed because I think, oh, I thought I'd got away from it. But it's not necessarily, it wasn't about how I felt about it from then. It was the way that I interpreted it from the start. And because I felt like I was in that bubble, that's what I felt. It was the lack of control, understanding that losing someone is horrible. There's no doubt about that. But the worst part of it is you'd love to be able to change it, but it's permanent. There's nothing you can do, and that's the difficult thing. It's such a alien thing to go through because compared to most things in life, you can do something about it and make up for your mistakes or recover it. Where with this, you can't. You've just got to accept it, and that was the challenge. Was just going, yeah. No matter how much I scream, no matter how much I cry about it, whatever, I can't do a thing about it. And the finality of that is the hardest part to deal with.
Mhm.
But as time's gone on, and as I've lived these 19 years since, and I've done all these things that I've done, I've realized that again, you can get on it with things. You may never change it. You may still, there's still going to be days when you're going to feel upset about it. It's natural, but it doesn't have to be your constant state of being. You can still be happy. You can still be in love with people. You can still love life, but you just have to live it with the knowledge in your head that this thing's happened. But I think, yeah, it's some things like that. I don't think you can change just like that. I think you have to go through these processes, no matter how much it sucks. You have to miss them. You have to feel all the feelings that come with it because it's the way that the body processes things. And then, you can have some support alongside it, but you have to go through it. And then eventually you will get through it. But it just takes the time it's going to take. And that's the thing I've learned now. You have to be patient. You can wish it wasn't so every day, but you've got to deal with it. But either way, the way I was talking to now I call him a friend. He's part of the healing group that I'm part of. It's the brother of the guy who's managing it. He's like overseeing the whole thing, and he's like kind of the integrator between us and the levels. He's a very open-minded, very experienced person. He said I was talking to him about the situation with my mum, and he goes, well, if you look at it as the way she cleared the way for you, in a way, her passing created this situation which you've ended up in, which has got you where you are now. So I actually feel like I'm talking about it now. That's such a it really is a beautiful way of looking at it. And I never thought about it that way. When he said it, I thought that actually really does make sense. Her sacrifice in a way has led me to be who I am. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have been a nice person if I hadn't been through the stuff I've been through. I still would be, but I wouldn't have the experience and point of view and knowledge that I have got now if I hadn't been through that stuff. And I'm really, really happy that I am who I am because of it now. So again, it's that challenge of finding yourself, especially with that. I had to refine myself. I had to find what I cared about, what motivated me to get up and get outside and do things rather than just sit there and dwell on it. But I found things I wasn't even aware of previously that I now am. And I've revisited some of the things that I used to do that I kind of lost interest in, like with the writing. I used to do a lot of story writing stuff when I was younger, but I just forgot about it almost. And now I've come back with these old skills, but with this new way of doing stuff. And now it's even better than it was before. So again, yeah, you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes it'd be horrible, sometimes it could be amazing. But even though we do have an idea of the patterns of life, never think that stuff can't change, because it can in an instant. I want to talk about how I've ended up with the healing group. Is I approached a lady because I was looking for some general coaching advice, which she was offering. And on the video call with her, I sensed that her grandmother was there in spirit with her. And I knew it was there. I got the information, saw what she looked like and things. And I deliberated on what I should say, or if I should say anything, because I didn't know her really. I didn't know if she was going to accept it, or she was going to think I was mad or get really upset. But I told her anyway, and she, after a bit of thinking about it, I told her what I saw, I told her what I felt, and she was able to accept it because I was right with what I was saying. She knew that I had the person there, etc. And basically, after that session finished, she contacted me a while later, a few months later, because she wanted some healing, and I was the first person she thought to approach. So I did the work for her. Again, it was really good. She felt what I sent her. She was in New York and I'm in England. And that's the first time I'd done a really long distance healing, but it worked spot on. Basically, she was so impressed with the results of it. She said she met Sarah, the guy who's managing the Lighthouse Healers, and she said she couldn't stop basically bragging about me. She really wanted him to know who I was. And in turn, we got in contact, and now I'm in a situation where I'm going to be working for him, doing healing. So again, it just shows, if I hadn't said anything, I know for that I wouldn't have ended up in the situation. But because I did, and because I was sure in myself, and I trusted what I was saying, and she was able to accept it, it made that impression on her. And now I'm where I am doing this. So yeah, that's a massive lesson for me, is if there's nothing wrong with just shooting the breeze and talking about whatever, but I don't generally tend to talk about things I don't think are worthwhile. But sometimes if you feel you have got something you need to say, then unless it's really going to harm somebody, then there shouldn't be any reason not to. And again, just have the confidence in yourself. Again, trust that you know what you're doing and what you want. That's the whole point of this whole thing, is go search internally, find out what you're passionate about, what you care about, how you fit in the world, and how you see yourself fitting in the world, and try and figure out how much of that is really true. Because humans have a really good way of creating situations that are never going to happen, but they've already lived through it and ended up feeling really bad because they've been through something that hasn't even happened yet. And again, it's that automatically starting in a negative place. If you can try and just sit and meditate, give yourself some peace, write a list of all the good things that are going on in the world, because there's millions of amazing things going on. There's people every day working their backsides off to try and provide for others. There's people that still love each other. There's still people that care about everything and care about making sure other people can have as best life as possible. And even though it's a very difficult situation, the world's still going. There's still people out there. There's still me and you talking. We're not really at a point where we still have the ability to talk over the internet. And if that's not saying, oh, I don't know what is, we can live without these things. We have got these things. And we should just be very thankful that we have, to be honest. And that's the thing, is big gratitude, being grateful for what you've got and the miracles that occur every day, and being able to discover that you can do energy healing, or discover that you can meditate and find quiet in your brain in this very crazy, busy world. And still breathe air, still have clean water and food to eat, these basic things, which again, we get used to and kind of take for granted, that we could not have. And yeah, just the fact that it's not too late to really stop things going completely wrong, but people need to, as I said before, we need to use the communication channels to spread that word, to to let people know they're not on their own, let people know that there is people that want them to do well, and that there's people that want everyone to do better and are trying to do that. We just need it to become the main factors in why we live our lives. Because again, the problem with money, that's the bad thing about the money, is people, as I said before, are taking advantage of people to profit off their suffering, really. And it's a shame that you get people like that. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of people that don't have some nasty intentions, because there's so many people in the world. Variation's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
right? We have to have the dark in order to have the light, so they're going to always be out there.
Yeah, a friend of mine made that point. It's like, well, if you don't have that friction, you've got nothing to compare it to or push against to get the traction to make that movement, have you? That's a really interesting way of putting it. But basically, the point is that the people that are not doing that and are victims of it because they're simply involved, if they're deserving of help, then they should get it. And hopefully people will be given access to this information. Like with this video, I'm hoping that people see it and people interact with it and share it, because it doesn't matter if they pay attention to me or look at any of the stuff I've talked about, but like you said, just the fact that someone might hear that one thing or see that one thing that makes them feel that they can be better or get out of a difficult situation, or leave that person that's been keeping them captive either emotionally or whatever for so long, and just go and do that thing that they should do. And the best advice, Trevor I was talking to earlier, said a lot of people live in fear, a lot of people are scared. And again, unless you've got an immediate danger, you don't really need to be scared of things. But because there's a lot of content, but there isn't as much as there should be, an abundance of knowledge of what to do with it. It's like we have all these emotions. We know we can be scared, but I was watching a program about people to go through like a watered down version of SAS training, basically. And one of the people who's the trainer, who's now retired from the SAS, was part of it. He goes, "You're not fearful. You just use that fear to fuel what you're doing. So you don't have to be completely happy, but you can use these what are negative emotions as tools to do better, because it's sharp. When you're scared, your adrenaline's going, you're sharpened up, your senses are heightened. You can turn all the negative things into good things, basically, is the point I'm trying to make. But it's just showing people how to do that, and people realizing that they can get out of situations they think might be impossible to move on from, but with the whatever method suits them, there can be a way to do it, whether that be the more subtle non-invasive energy healing of Reiki and things like that, or whether it's talking therapy, or whether it's using cognitive behavioral therapy and using the patterns of the tapping. Whatever it is, there is something that will probably work well for you. Even though herbology, as I'm sure you know, you're aware of, the power of plants is something that's often overlooked, but is a very, that's where medicine came from to begin with, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, nature supplies us with everything from day one.
Yeah, and that's why we need to nurture and keep it going, because we got those things there for us. We just need to know how to use it. And related to that, mushrooms have become a very much a popular subject, with the benefits of what various types of mushrooms can do for people. Even to the point where people, say that some of them can help cure cancer and stuff like that. But again, it's sharing this information and letting people know that it can happen, and educating them with it. And that's part of the battle, isn't it? Because you have the people that generally control the situations suppress what people get to know, because they want to sell them certain things. Like, because if we weren't buying stuff off them, they wouldn't be making money. So, it even gets to the point where things are made illegal simply to stop people having them. And a lot of it is just bitterness and kind of just depression for the sake of it, really. But I don't want to try and start a revolution, but I think it's already happening. A lot of people are waking up to the way they've been dictated to and the things they've done. And they're, people like yourself starting this video channel, and other people are realizing these things need to be said and discussed, and they are. So we just need to keep growing it, really. And then in time, it'll develop, won't it? And then eventually, in a year's time, I'd be interested to maybe come back and talk to you again and see what's happened since then, because I'm sure it's going to be another crazy ride, and a lot of stuff have changed.
I'd say I think all of us as overall have really realized how much we can really change in just a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this has been the most prevalent year in my development ever. It really has. And I don't know, it wasn't like I sat down and thought, right, I'm going to make myself better today. I just felt like I should. Something in my mind went, pick up your phone, write that poem. Because you know what it's like. People are very, because they're behind a screen, they can be very nasty on the internet simply for the sake of it. And I didn't want to put myself through that. I didn't want someone to tear into me, because I was feeling, not because I'm trying to protect my ego, but I was feeling sensitive enough because the world was going crazy. And I think it was the general feeling, but also I feel, as a person that's sensitive to energy, my head felt horrible. It was so fuzzy because there was just so much confusion of what was going on. But basically, I got over that. I just thought, no, I'm going to send it out there, see what happens. I got a few reactions. The day after, I thought, I'll do that again. And that led on to where I am now. So again, a small step has had massive changes.
So we talked, I mean, like, you've been so telepathically on point through this interview, I'd say that I haven't even really had to ask too many questions, because you've naturally kind of flowed into the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
I guess for the end, since, I mean, you've put a lot of really good inspirational like advice out here, the stories. I'm just so glad to, connect with you today and be able to share all of this. Where can people find you? And do you have any upcoming events or projects that you're working on?
Well, currently, if you go on lighthousehealers.ca, there is the website which has got about the work they're doing, but they also have a summit online that's going on at the moment. It's on the second day, where they have people kind of talking like I am about their experiences and their skills and what they do, and how people can better themselves and feel less anxious and less stressed. It's free to access for the main content. For $22, you can get a few extra things, one of which being I've actually written and had designed with my friend Trevor a poem, which I think it's going to be one released each month. There's going to be like a well-being package, and part of that is going to be included in it. So again, that's awesome for me to know that whoever gets it is going to know of my poetry wherever it ends up. But yeah, the whole thing is just got so many amazing people talking about what they're doing, and it's hopefully going to get people interested in the company, what they're doing. And if you know anybody that you feel can benefit from some distance energy healing to help them with that, then this is the place to come. I'm not just saying it because I'm involved, but the power of the 11 people together, you need to experience it. Even if you don't necessarily need therapy, just to have that energy to feel the change in it is absolutely phenomenal. Also, Trevor, who I've been talking about, we have our website, which is oliverandbarretts.co.uk, which will see the art that we've been doing. And again, check that out, because the way he's pictorially represented my words is absolutely beautiful. And together I find it works really well. We're also currently building a page for me to be linked in with that, but to talk about my therapy work, my holistic work, my readings, etc. So that'll be up soon. My Facebook page for myself is David Oliver, Reiki Master and NLP Practitioner. So if you want to contact me directly for anything that I do, that's the best way to get hold of me at the moment. Obviously, message me, or my phone number's on there. And also, if you want to check out the book, put in Find Your Style, David Oliver Poetry on Amazon, and that'll specifically take you to my book. You can have a preview of a few of the poems before buying it, so you can decide if it's something you want to invest in, but that's available in paperback and also on Kindle. And yeah, I mean, whatever it does for you, I hope it does well. And if you can benefit from the things I'm putting out there, then that's great. And if you want some of the art that I've helped produce on your wall, then do it, because it'll look awesome. And yeah, and just check out the Lighthouse Healers situation, because again, that is something that is really worthwhile. The guy running it, Sarah, he's got such a beautiful heart and such a great enthusiasm. He just really wants to help people, and he's looking at the best ways to do that. And using the distance healing is, I think, quite a unique way of going about it. But I feel, like I said, the power behind it is definitely going to make some massive differences to people. And obviously, because I'm involved in it, it's good for me to be doing it and to be practicing it. I want to do this as much as possible because I love it. So the more opportunities, the better, really.
Absolutely. And what we'll do is we can also put your links to your Facebook page and the websites in the comments. And then I'll also add those in the comments when I upload it to YouTube. So anybody who isn't able to watch on Facebook, they'll have all the access, so they can contact you as well on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So do you have any last, any little bits of advice or anything else you'd like to say before we end our interview today?
Well, contrary to what I said before, if you've got something to say, then don't be afraid to say, because you don't know what could happen. And it may be difficult to do this, but don't look at the world thinking that everything's against you, because it's not. There is still some people who are not willing to help others, but there's a lot of people that are. And it's growing by the day. People are realizing that people need help and need help themselves. And it's taking a few extreme ways for people to accept people for who they are, but those things are happening and people are speaking up for themselves. And just don't be afraid to represent who you are, and don't be scared of who you are, because there's a reason for it at the end of the day. You might not know what it is, but you're doing what you are for a reason, and you might not know the answers to it for a while, but just have faith that you're doing the right thing at the end of the day. Don't be scared. We're all, like I said, we're all kind of second guessing what's going on. We think we've got an idea, but we haven't 100%. But that's part of the fun of the mystery of life, isn't it? Exploring what's going on. So just enjoy the journey and try and live well and try and look after other people. And hopefully what you give out, you'll get back, and it will come back tenfold.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more anymore. Like
Mm.
that is one of our biggest missions is just, just keep going, and sometimes when we step out of that comfort zone and actually say what it is, it builds our confidence over time too. It really does.
Yeah,
It helps me build my value and confidence the more that I practice, the more that I put myself out of that comfort zone and made that comment like you were talking about with the lady talking about when we have sometimes in mediums when we have deceased loved ones come through, it's a little nerve wracking for us to reach out to someone and say, hey, does this resonate? But the more that we do it and the more we put ourselves on that front line, the more confidence that we build within that, to be able to share the messages.
well, that's it. I've been forced to do distance healing because I can't be face to face, but it's enhanced my abilities and made me able to do what I'm doing now. So yeah, if you can adapt to things and you can actually thrive under pressure.
Hmm.
That's it. If you have the pressure, then again use that fear, use whatever it is to drive yourself rather than let it take over you, and you can achieve more than you ever thought possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me and, to share your message with everybody out there who, is tuned in and who needs to hear it. I'm super glad about, having these interviews and being able to get these inspirational stories out so people can really realize how a lot of us do connect. A lot of us have a lot of the same thoughts and feelings, and being able to share it really overall, helps us all grow and find that motivation or that little, even if it's that little thread of light to inspire us, to do something that we're uncomfortable in doing, then, we met our goal, is how I look at it. Is it's not about reaching 1,000, like you said. It's about, if just one person,
Mm.
gets a little bit of information out of this, that's the world. So I just want to thank you so much for taking your time to share, your stories and your inspiration and advice and all the great stuff that you brought to the table today. A lot of golden nuggets, I'd say. I have to, even myself, I'm going to have to marinate in this a little bit and keep going because there was such good information today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And yeah, like I said, it's just I'm really happy that I'm able to say these things and have experienced them really, because when I was younger, I never imagined that again. I was so entrenched in that situation. I didn't know I could feel any different. And now I have done. That's what really inspires me to know that I can work with other people and that they can get there because I have lived it. I've genuinely been through this and I've come out through. It's a different side, but it's the other side of where I was. And I have so much passion for my life, even though it's difficult with what's going on. I care so much because I want to see the good things happen. I want to help make them happen, and I want to see these things change. And if we use the resources we got with the right intelligence, we can be amazing even more than we already are. So, and yeah, anyone that's in those early stages of life, this is the future that they've got to work towards. And, the people who are responsible for creating it need to help. But the people who are coming up next, hopefully they'll have that inspiration to take that next step
Mhm.
because I'm sure there's millions of things we still haven't even conceived that are going to come around. So we just hopefully we'll be able to get to that point where they have that chance to thrive.
Yep, and it's a work in progress. We never,
No.
it's never instant. Like you're saying, we're in a world of instant gratification, and sometimes, it takes a minute for the 3D and the 5D to catch up. So, sometimes that's what I tell a lot of people is, we try so hard, but that perseverance is that key. So you putting in the work today, it might take some time, before we actually start to see those come into fruition. And
Yeah,
so
give it a
keep
year
pushing
for the
forward.
signal to be received and sent back and then see what happens. Yeah. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, you have to be patient, but with enough desire and sending that again, you have to speak up, send that message out there. If you don't, it's never going to get a response because no one will know that you want it. So if you try, you might not get it, but if you don't try, you're never going to know, are you? So
Yeah, the most important thing is to just show up.
that's
Even if
it.
you don't have a clue. You showed up, and that's that main step.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're going to put in the comments the links if you would like to get a hold of Mr. David Oliver. And then for myself, you can find me on lovelotusevolution.com or on Facebook. Just look up Love Lotus Evolution and you can find me there. Feel free, anyone who is listening, if you're watching and you have questions or a comment, feel free to toss them in the comments or shoot either of us a message. We're here to help you. And we're here to help answer any questions. That's one of our biggest things. So I'm so glad for anybody who's watched, and I hope that this brought some good information, and I hope everybody has a great week. And again, just a reminder that next weekend is the Healing Expo in Battle Creek at the Lakeview Square Mall. There will be tons of practitioners and healers there. So come check us out and find Mr. David Oliver or myself on Facebook or online. So with that, we'll just go ahead and say bye, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.